Okay, now my Protos Max is, unfortunately, it's mounted the same direction as this one, otherwise I would have used it. But here is my 450L. It's a similar helicopter, and as you can see, the brain is mounted in between the frames under here with the brain facing down and the wires back. So for like this one here, its setup is selected totally different. It is right here, bottom down, or which one? Bottom up, wires back. That would be my 450L. Oops, stinking touchscreen. Now, I don't really. Normally, I would say set level here, but since I know for a fact my table that I'm using for this video is most certainly unlevel, I really don't want to click that here. But what you want to do is you find a spot and set your helicopter, and use playing cards like a deck of cards or whatever, and stick it underneath your skids and check for level. And it takes a bunch of times of getting it right, but anyways, get your helicopter sitting as level as possible, and make sure your main shaft is truly vertical, and then hit set level. Now when you go to fly the first time, you need to have it up as high as possible where you're comfortable, and flip the switch, but at the same time be prepared to flip it back the other way should the helicopter jump, because if anything is set incorrectly, or if the level was set with it slightly off, and depending on how fast you have your roll rate set and all that, which will come up here in a minute, that helicopter might roll or jump very fast, and it can surprise you. Or if you have a vibration like in a nitro, or even an electric, if you have a bad bearing, the self level runs off accelerometers instead of the highly vibration resistant sensors that the typical flying runs off of. So any weird vibration or resonating vibration of any type will cause bad issues with the self level. So just be aware of that. I do know that the guys in Italy, Rick and Corrado and them, they're working very hard on the self level and improving it to where it is more bulletproof and more resilient. But it's a little ways out still. But I'm positive they'll get it, man. Those guys do some awesome work. Okay, so now that this is done, we have our directions set. We've chosen to set level. We move on to the governor. Here's where you set up your gear ratio. Say if you don't know it, you go in here to this calculator and you type in your motor pinion teeth count and your main gear teeth count, and you hit OK, and it will change this ratio to whatever those come up to. It does all the math for you. So since we already have it known, we'll just leave it like it is. The sensing divisor is however many magnetic poles are in your motor divided by 2. If you're so this motor is, for example, is a 10-pole motor, and the sensing divisor is 5 because of that. Say you're running a nitro, for example, though, you want to put that as a number 1, because you're gonna have 2 magnets or what have you, or even just because I'm trying to think of a way to describe just the way the nitro works with the pickup. You just put that as a sensing divisor as 1, and it tells you over here exactly what I'm trying to describe as well. Now set your speeds that you want for idle up 1, idle up 2, and idle up 3. 3700 is extremely hot. Wow. I'm going to back that down. I'm going to call that one 3400. And move the cursor off so that you know it accepts it. and make sure this box is checked. It tells you that the motor's electric. If it's not, if it's an electric. If it's a nitro, make sure you uncheck that box. Alright. Now, I'm not real sure why, but somebody opted to write these endpoints here at 1073 and 1960. That is something that's only done for the Castle ESCs. Now, anyways, if you're running a nitro, this would be where you set like your servo limits to the minimum throttle, max throttle by moving your stick to max. The slider, how it moves, and this changes to 0 and 100. Well, if say your throttle wasn't open all the way, you could hit this plus button until it did. And then if you went down and it wasn't closed all the way, you could hit the minus button until it closed all the way, or the plus, whichever. I can't remember exactly if plus added more, minus, negative, or what have you. But anyways, you hit that till you got it right. Until it closed the throttle, and this one would open it. It's 1073 and 1960. Those are important to know if you're running a Castle ESC. If you're running a Castle ESC and you want to use to the calibration procedure, whatever, you don't want to go through all that grief and getting a standard receiver and figuring out your endpoints and then going back to plugging it into the brain. It's real simple. Once you calibrate your radio to the minimum max at 0 and 100%, and here on your radio calibration, right here, you would type in 1073 for your minimum throttle pulse count and 1960 for your max pulse count. That allows the Castle ESC to see 2 milliseconds for max throttle and the minimum pulse count for the 0 throttle. And it allows it to both arm and to achieve the full spectrum of the throttle, so to speak. There's also some other things you need to do inside of the Castle ESC, but since this one doesn't have a Castle, it's got a hobby wing, we're gonna leave it like it is. Now you come over here and we're gonna pick the size of the helicopter. That defaults every PID loop in the advanced settings to the default settings for that size helicopter. Like if I come right here and look, and also, let's think how to explain this. This defaults the PID loop for the head itself and the tail and the main gains to set to the 450 size to work as best as it could for most all 450s. You also have to consider though that the newer 450s are more of in between a 450 and a 500, so you might have to tweak your PID loop a little bit to be close. Like sometimes I found with my original 450L, it was easier for me to just select the 500. Things were closer. This one I'm going to start with the 450 though. So then move on. Hardcore 3D is what I usually pick. That doesn't necessarily mean hardcore, like I'm direct behind the sticks or anything. That's just, I like the way it rolls a little faster. And my expo in the brain is set to like 20 with hardcore. I think it's like 30 or so on this one, and even squishier on this one. Also, this changes the roll rates, and I'll show you what I mean by that. I'm gonna go ahead and pick this one for hardcore right now, this one for 3D, and this one for sport. I'm gonna go over here to the select the advanced, go to setup 1, cyclic. Our cyclic roll rate for hardcore is 420. Our setup for regular 3D, our roll rate just dropped to 350. Now then, right here for the sport flying, our roll rate dropped to 240. That tells me how many degrees the helicopter is going to roll per second at max deflection. When I give full aileron or full elevator, the PID loop is going to try to make this helicopter roll 240 degrees a second, or if I'm in this bank, 350 degrees a second, or if I'm in this bank at hardcore 3D, 420 degrees a second. For my personal flying, I bump all these up from above hardcore. Like I take these to 440. I just feel like I like the way it feels more at 440. So if you feel like your helicopter's not rolling fast enough, or it's rolling too fast, now you kind of have an idea of what you need to do. You need to change those equally. I'm gonna bump that down. Now then, this agility, the lower this number is, the more robotic it's going to be, or the more like it's going to do exactly what you tell it to, versus the higher the number, it's going to have more of a fly bar type reaction, to where when you let off the stick, it might kind of back off from doing what it was doing. Whereas if I lower it to say 60 or 70, I'll tell it to go forward and I let off the stick, it's going to still try to go forward a little harder than it would at 90. The PID loops themselves, I strongly suggest leaving that alone as much as possible. That can get you in a hurry, and problems in a hurry. So the tail, I bumped this up tremendously. 440, that is hardcore 3D settings. I personally like 520 to 540. That's how many degrees the helicopter is going to rotate a second. That's just my personal preference. Now then, if say you want to add some expo, here's where you do it. It says -20. Negative is really like more expo. It's going to make it to where it moves less at center stick. If you want it to be hotter around center stick, drop it down to -10 or even 0, and you won't have any expo. If you want some pitch pump, it's here. Like you can hover over it and it tells you you can raise this to Okay, I'm gonna have to go charge my radio. I done ran it dead. But anyways, if you want to raise the pitch pump up, that will give you, it'll add more pitch to the helicopter as it's when you upon immediate pitch commands. I'm gonna leave all that at 0 at first, just because for tuning I don't need stuff getting it initially dialed in. You don't need any extra nuances coming in and affecting you. So I'm going to leave that all like it is and go back to the basic. Now here on the advanced, now we're done here. We've dialed this in to where we think we might going to like it. I've selected governor for each one because I like governor. I'm not going to mess with the auto level right now just because I'm trying to get it initially dialed to flying. Once you get it flying, after that, then go back and tune the auto level. But see, now you can come over here and click this, and see if I can get my radio to work just on the. We're going to check it, make sure it corrects right, and see the swash is staying level. And that's what we want. And the tail is going against the movement, which is what we want. So now we are ready to go try to fly for the first time after the radio charges. Now, bear with me guys, and I will get a flying video up and a more descriptive on how to get the